most of the men that I worked with in my almost 10 years have been awesome, but every now and then you come across some that they're just not quite sure how to deal with a female officer. And sometimes it is a matter of going to the bathroom. You know, you can't really, if you're out in the bushes, that's one thing, but out in the boat, you're like, okay, you have to get almost completely undressed, whereas, you know, men traditionally don't have to do that.
That's Lerrin Williams. She's been a game warden with Texas Parks and Wildlife for nearly 10 years now. You may have also seen her on Lone Star Law, a reality TV show on Animal Planet where they follow game wardens throughout the Lone Star State as they protect more than 250,000 square miles of deserts, lakes, piney woods, bayous, plains, and coast. Cameras follow as they investigate things like poaching cases, they save flash flood victims, disrupt illegal smuggling rings, rescue injured wildlife, and much, much more. And this is Lerrin's story.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
Welcome, friends and first-time listeners alike. You have found the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, powered by Angler Style. I'm your host, Angie Scott. I'm excited to announce I've got a few products now available at anglerstyle.com. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, please go check it out. Also, before we get into today's exciting episode with female game warden Lerrin Williams, I wanted to share something pretty exciting that happened to me recently. As some of you who follow the show may know, I live in Nashville, and over the years I've dabbled a little in songwriting. I'm excited to say I finally got my first song recorded. It was a song I wrote with another writer who moved to Nashville from Minnesota named Troy Castellano. We didn't know each other from back home, even though we grew up very close to each other. A mutual friend introduced us when Troy got to Nashville, and we met up and started writing some songs. This one was a very special song. It was written during a very important time in my life. It's called One Day at a Time, and it was recorded by country artist Ricky Lee. You can find it now on iTunes, Spotify, and there's even a pretty cool inspirational video he put together for it on YouTube. I'll share the links in the show notes, and you can find those at anglerstyle.com/14. All right, enough about me. Let's get into why you're really listening today. Obviously, we all love the outdoors, or you wouldn't be listening to this show. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have a career where your office was out in the woods or out on the water? Well, Lerrin Williams has done just that. She started out studying biology at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, but when it came time to decide what to do with her degree, a meeting at a career fair led her down an unexpected path.
My degree is in biology. So I've got this, passion for science and outdoors and, but when it came down to senior year of college and trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do with my degree, I really wasn't sure. I had worked in a lab and, sitting in a room with, no windows in front of a microscope for hours on end was not quite my cup of tea. So I started looking at other avenues, and I had met the game warden recruiter at a career fair, and so I started looking into it a lot more, and then I did some ride-alongs and was just, really interested in it. And so I was like, well, let's just go ahead and apply. Doesn't hurt putting an application in. And here I am almost 10 years later, a game warden and still loving my job.
Is biology or any specific degree required to be a game warden for Texas Parks and Wildlife?
No, so we have no requirement of a specific type of degree.
Okay.
We just require a bachelor's degree.
It's important to note that each state is different, so if you're interested in pursuing this or know someone who is, be sure and check the requirements for the particular state you're interested in becoming a game warden in. For instance, in Tennessee, All game wardens must have a bachelor's degree in one of the following subjects: wildlife management, fisheries management, wildlife biology. In addition to that, you'd have to have 20 semester hours in wildlife-related subjects, plus one of the following: biology, zoology, animal sciences, agricultural sciences, ecology, or forestry. And in Florida, that's the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, you have to have a background in law enforcement, public contact work, or military experience, specifically work experience, or 30 semester hours at an accredited college or university. In addition to that, you have to be able to pass a couple academic and physical tests, including a swim test. In Minnesota, only a high school diploma is required, but a college degree could greatly increase your chances of getting a job. Being part of the Thin Green Line, as they call it, in Minnesota is one of the most sought after jobs. I found a great website called gamewardenedu.org where they spell out requirements for each state, so I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I asked Lerrin if she ever imagined that she would be doing this for her career.
I can't say I ever grew up thinking, I'm going to be a police officer when I grow up. And so here in Texas, as a game warden, we do a lot of additional police work with the additional duties of all of the outdoor fishing, hunting, water safety, recreation stuff, and commercial stuff.
What's been the biggest challenge for you being a female in this line of work?
I'm kind of a smaller statured woman, and so most people are like, wait, you're a game warden? You're tiny, and you're a woman. So I think overcoming perception, but then also just proving to myself that, physical fitness and, people that are bigger than me aren't as big of a deal as they can be perceived.
What was the training like?
The Game Warden Academy here in Texas is about anywhere between 7 and 8 months of training, and you live at the academy 5 days a week. You get to go home some weekends, and it's a lot of book work because you've got 3 to 4 months of the traditional police officer classes, and tack on another 3 months of all the parks and wildlife, fish and game stuff, like all that information as well. So it's a lot of book work, and it's a lot of studying and tests, and so it's pretty intense. And then you're living out at a facility out on I think it's about a 250 acre ranch out in the middle of nowhere. So you gotta get become real good friends with all the other cadets that are at the academy with you, because that's all I got.
When you went through the academy, were there any other females in the class?
We had a total of 55 cadets when we started, and there were 5 females out of that 55.
Okay.
We graduated. 4 of the females, the ladies, graduated. We had 1 drop out just after the halfway mark. So we graduated 4 out of 51
Gotcha.
Were females in my class.
Was that whole process of going through the academy kind of what you were expecting, or?
I think going into it, I still was like, wait, I'm going to be a police officer. But okay, sure. But when I was in the Game Warden Academy, there was guys that were taller than me and bigger than me, and it was like, hey, let's do defense tactics. I gotta, figure out how to do it on someone way bigger than me.
Yeah.
And and then the book work, you start to learn all the laws, and you learn firearm proficiency and defense tactics and handcuffing techniques and stuff, and it really is a lot of fun when you're in the learning stage with it.
Did any part of that process feel overwhelming to you at all? It seems like there's so many aspects and things that you have to learn in a fairly short amount of time.
Not really, because I had come from, I had just come out of college, just graduated. So, all 4 years of college, I took a full load of classes as well as maintaining a full-time job. So I was used to, a lot going on. So it wasn't that big of a change for me.
I'm guessing there's really no set typical day in your line of work, but as best you can you give us an idea of what a typical day might be like for you?
most of my work days, we hit the water, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning in the boat, and we're checking fishermen until at least dark some days. So whether it's bay fishermen in the smaller protected bays, or fishermen coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, every now and then we come across some of our commercial boats, which when I say commercial boats, it's people that are, they're harvesting fish or shrimp for the commercial side of things, that they sell it for, the different shrimp houses for people to buy bait, or for table shrimp, or, fish when you go to the fresh fish when you go to a restaurant, stuff like that. So that's what, so we do a lot of commercial stuff as well as, mostly the recreational stuff, but we're in a very busy area for coastal activities.
So being as you're in the Corpus Christi area, I know you got hit by Hurricane Harvey pretty hard. I've got a friend my best friend actually from growing up, that lives in League City, Texas, and they're still not back in their house. What was the process, or what was that experience like, being a game warden and going through a natural disaster like that?
Well, and for us down here where I'm at in the Port Aransas Pass, Rockport area, we took the direct hit of Harvey. And we rode out the storm. We had to, as game wardens, you're first responders in situations like that. So we stayed here in the area during the storm, which was pretty intense. And then, you wake up and you're out at daylight right after the storm. The worst of the storm is past, and you're seeing Aransas Pass is my hometown. And when I got out on the streets of Aransas Pass, that, I was born and raised there and have returned for my career and been, a game warden here for 7 years, and to see businesses and homes that have been there for my whole life that are completely gone, or the roofs have just been completely ripped off. And it was pretty heartbreaking, especially those first few hours. But we stayed very busy, knocking on doors, seeing if people were still in their homes, if they needed, supplies. And then after the initial, looking for people or injured, loss of life, stuff like that, then we turned around and started, let's start cutting trees and help hauling debris and getting out, as well as we do the game wardens. We did a lot of down here, the police officer side of things, because there was a lot of looting going on. So we were just doing a lot of patrol and response to, criminal activity that was happening. So there was a wide variety of things that, Texas Game Wardens did during Hurricane Harvey, because down here where we took the direct hit, we were doing a completely different job than what the game wardens up in Houston were doing, with all the water rescues and stuff like that. So, and down here, we're still not back to normal. There's still people that have blue tarps on their roofs because they're fighting insurance companies and federal agencies. And so, some of our worst hit areas, there's a lot of businesses and homes that have been repaired and businesses that are back open, but we by no means are back to what we were before the storm.
Is that probably one of the craziest things you've encountered thus far?
Yeah, the hurricane has been, a whole different ball game I've dealt with in my career. The last major hurricane that hit, I was in college, so I hadn't quite started for me doing a hurricane.
Being out in the field, what have been some of the biggest challenges you face being female?
There's still in law enforcement across the board, there's still there's less women in this traditionally male-filled role. Now, there are a lot of women that have broken into the field, and captains and chiefs of police and stuff like that.
That being said, there's still definitely challenges of perceptions that Lerrin runs into of not being taken seriously from time to time. She gave us some insight in regards to hunters specifically.
Sometimes they may look down on you, and sometimes they don't. There's plenty. Most, plenty of, hunters across the board that are like, awesome, a female warden. This is awesome. I've not seen one. I've never met one before because in Texas, I can't give you the official stat, but I think there's somewhere between, 30 to 45 female game wardens within our department of, 550 game wardens.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a pretty low number, but by no means am I, remaking the wheel or carving the way. There are females that have carved the way for us, but it's just you're working with, male counterparts, which for the majority of all of our game warden counterparts, they're pretty awesome. Most of the men that I've worked with in my almost 10 years have been awesome, but every now and then you come across some that they're just not quite sure how to deal with a female officer. And sometimes it is a matter of going to the bathroom. You can't really, if you're out in the bushes, that's one thing, but out in the boat, you're like, okay, you have to get almost completely undressed, whereas, men traditionally don't have to do that.
I know you face some pretty intense heat and humidity in that part of the country. Has that been a challenge for you, or is that just something you're used to because you grew up in that area?
The weather conditions for some people that are not used to it is sometimes, they take some serious adjustment. But yeah, for me being raised down in this area where it's, on an average day, you've got a 80 to 90% humidity, and during the summer it's 98 degrees. I'm used to it. I wear long sleeves and pants just to protect my skin from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Because I spend most of my days, all day in the sun. And yeah, it adds a little bit of an extra heat barrier, but I guess I'm so used to it, I don't even notice it anymore. But people walk by or, gosh, aren't you hot in that? And I'm like, I guess I haven't noticed.
Do you have any advice for any other young girls out there that might be interested in pursuing becoming a game warden?
I would say for any young women that are interested in this career, whether it be in Texas or any state, I would suggest looking into the career and, making yourself knowledgeable about what the actual career entails. Because there are some departments, Department of Natural Resources or Texas Parks and Wildlife or Fish and Game, whatever state you're in. The game warden is a different job depending on each state. Some focus more on biology and some focus more on law enforcement, and some have a healthy mix of the two. So just be prepared, do your research about what the position within your state or the state you're looking at, what it entails. But also, this is a law enforcement job that you carry a gun and a badge for the most part. So your physical fitness is something you have to be very mindful of. And you want to be the most physically fit, confident self that you can be to take care of yourself and to present that police officer image and for officer presence. So I also would suggest if you're in a state or in Texas, we do offer ride-alongs for people that are interested in doing this job. And so getting with a local game warden and doing a ride-along and seeing what this job actually is and hands-on experience, if it's something you're actually considering as a career choice.
Is there an age limit, or when would be the best time for somebody interested in pursuing this career to try and request a ride-along?
While you're, in your college years, that's when you really should do that career building.
I couldn't let Lerrin go without talking about her experience of being on Lone Star Law, a reality show on Animal Planet.
If any fans, that are listening watch that show, I was actually on an episode, I believe last week, the episode I was just on, we were really cold stunned during some of the big freezes we had this year. And then from season 2, I was on an episode where we were checking offshore fishermen, and then transitioned into a different segment where it was later in the year that we were checking duck hunters out in the bay. So it shows the show across the board shows the diversity of our job and the diversity of the personalities that are within our department and our division. Plus, you get to see some cool animal things and learn, a lot of people, we say, if they're interested in this as a job, like, hey, have you watched our show? Because this tells you a lot about what Texas game wardens do. We've started really like pushing that as a recruiting tool even.
What's it been like for you being on the job and being on the other side of the camera?
So being on the other side of the camera hasn't been too bad. I guess the initial like first minute or two when they're filming, you're nervous and you're, you feel like you fumble over your words, but then you forget about it and they're just filming and it's not too bad. And one of the coolest things that my partner, Albert Flores, and I, one of the coolest things that we love is because we live in such like a tourist area. So many people come down to Port Aransas during the summers to go to the beach and stuff. We get recognized all the time. And the most fun that we have with it, or the enjoyable part about that to us, is when these kids, these 7, 8, 10, 12, 14-year-olds are just like starstruck by us. It's just like, say what? Like you'd think they were meeting Justin Timberlake or someone like that, a huge superstar. And we're like, we've only been on one episode. But it's introducing these kids to this outdoor world that some of them don't have access to. And so that's really one of the most enjoyable parts of being, featured on this show, is getting to see and interact with the youth that are the next generation of outdoorsmen, men and women, and getting to maybe see or help instill a passion for them.
Yeah. Cool. Have you had to sign any autographs or pose for pictures yet?
Oh yeah, we pose for a lot of pictures. I haven't really signed many autographs, but we're typically like, in the middle of doing all kinds of stuff. So, but yeah, it's lots of pictures normally.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. It's fun to get different perspectives from women out there in all different aspects of the outdoors industry, whether it be recreational fishing or hunting, or doing it professionally as a career like Game Warden Williams does. And so super appreciative to have her on. I hope you all really enjoyed it. Go check out Lone Star Law. I'll put links to everything in the show notes, but it's a really great show. I've watched it many, many times myself, so super honored to have her take the time out of her schedule. We did this interview on one of her days off, so it's really cool for her to be willing to do that. Until next time, that's all I have. Please be sure to subscribe on iTunes or Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the show notes again at anglerstyle.com/14, and also check out the Woman Angler and Adventure Facebook group on Facebook. We're just getting that rolling, and we've got a few members signed up so far, and we're looking to make that a pretty cool group for women who are into the fishing and the outdoors and just fans of this podcast. So hope you will do that, and until next time, stay safe. Thanks for listening.